Okay, so imagine you're developing this groundbreaking new drug, something with the potential to really change lives.
Right.
But before you even start clinical trials, you kind of already know if it's going to be a success or a flop.
Wow.
That's the incredible power of AI.
Yeah.
And that's precisely what we're diving deep into today, right here.
Okay.
You sent us some really fascinating research papers all about using artificial intelligence to predict outcomes in these clinical trials.
Yeah, we did.
And let me tell you, this stuff is really cutting edge.
It is. It's really, really on the leading edge.
Yeah.
And as you know, clinical trials, especially in areas like oncology, like they can be super expensive.
Oh, yeah.
And they just take years and years and years to complete.
They do.
So if we had a way to, accurately predict outcomes like right from the get-go, it could completely revolutionize how we develop new drugs.
Absolutely.
Really change the game.
So let's unpack what these researchers actually did, right?
Okay.
They basically took a whole bunch of different AI models.
Yeah.
Some you might even recognize, like a GPT-4.
Right.
And they fed them tons of data
from
these from real clinical trials.
Wow.
And so think of these large language models, or LLMs, as they're like super powered AI that can just go through mountains of text and data.
Right.
And they can find these hidden patterns that we humans might completely miss.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting, they didn't just use one type of AI.
Right.
They tested out a whole bunch of different models, including one called HINT.
Okay.
And then compared their performance.
Oh, okay. So it's like this head-to-head.
It is.
It's like an AI competition.
Right.
To see who could predict the future of these trials.
Yeah, exactly.
So what did they find? Was there like a clear winner?
Well, one of the big takeaways is that different AI models actually have different strengths.
Okay. Yeah. Makes sense.
For example, GPT-4, specifically a version called GPT-4
Okay.
It showed a lot of promise in early stage trials.
Right.
It was really, really good at picking out the trials that were likely to succeed.
Oh, that's impressive. So it's almost like having a crystal ball for early drug development.
Right.
But I'm guessing it wasn't perfect, right?
Yeah.
There had to be some limitations.
Exactly. Yeah. So while GPT-4 was good at identifying potential winners, it wasn't as good at spotting the trials that were likely to fail.
Right. Yeah.
So in technical terms, we would say it had high recall, but low specificity.
Okay, help me understand that.
Sure.
What exactly do recall and specificity? What do those even mean in this context?
Okay, so think of it like a spam filter.
Okay. I like that.
So a spam filter with high recall, it's going to catch all the junk mail, which is great.
Right.
But if it also has low specificity, it means it's going to accidentally flag some important emails as spam.
So GPT-4 was like an overzealous spam filter.
Yes.
For clinical trial success.
Exactly.
It caught a lot of, the good stuff.
Right.
But it also might have missed, some potential duds.
Right.
And that's a big deal when you're talking about, all the time and resources that go into drug development.
Right. Exactly. And here's where it gets really, really interesting.
Okay.
So that other AI model, the one we mentioned. HINT. Yeah. It actually performed better at recognizing those negative outcomes.
Oh, wow.
Particularly in later stage trials.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Surprising.
Yeah.
Why would a different AI model be better at predicting like the failures?
Right.
And specifically in later stage trials? That seems kind of counterintuitive.
It does. That's what makes this research, so fascinating.
Okay.
And it turns out that, as trials progress, they just become more and more complex.
Yeah, they do.
You have more patients. You're looking at long-term effects.
Right.
There's more variables to consider.
Yeah.
So
it's like those, those LLMs like GPT-4 are still learning how to handle the complexities of, those later stage trials.
Right.
While HINT might be better equipped to deal with all those moving parts.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like HINT might be more sensitive to the nuances and the potential pitfalls that can pop up in those more complex trials. And that, that raises the question, what makes later stage trials so different that a different AI model excels,
Yeah.
What's going on there?
Okay, I'm all ears. What makes those later stage trials such a tough nut to crack?
Right.
Even for AI.
Yeah. Well, you have to remember that later stage trials, they just involve a lot more patients.
Right.
Which means more data, more variability, and more potential for those, unexpected outcomes.
Right.
And you're also looking at, the long-term effects of a treatment.
Right.
So that adds another layer of complexity.
It does. Yeah. It's like trying to predict the weather.
Right.
A year in advance.
Yep.
Versus just looking at tomorrow's forecast.
Exactly.
The further out you go, the more unpredictable things become.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And on top of that, later stage trials, they often involve comparing a new treatment.
Okay.
Yeah. To existing treatments. Right. Or a placebo.
Yeah.
So that introduces even more variables into the equation.
Right. Yeah, I see. So it's not just about the AI's ability to analyze the data.
Right.
It's also about understanding the intricate dynamics of these clinical trials.
Yeah.
Which, as you've explained, get pretty complicated.
They do.
In the later stages.
Especially in those later stages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so interesting, the AI models, they also had, they had varying degrees of success when it came to predicting different types of trial outcomes.
Exactly.
So some outcomes, like overall survival rates were easier for the AI to predict.
Yeah.
While others, like, specific side effects or how well patients respond to treatment proved more challenging.
Yeah, they did.
When I was reading through these research papers, one thing that really jumped out at me was that all the AI models, even the ones that performed well in other areas, seem to really struggle with oncology trials.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
That's a great observation. Yeah. And it highlights another layer of complexity in this whole field.
Okay.
Oncology trials are notoriously difficult to predict for a number of reasons.
Like what? Fill me in. Why are oncology trials such a tough puzzle to solve?
Right.
Even for these super smart AIs.
Well, for one thing, cancer is incredibly complex.
Oh, yeah.
There are so many different types of cancer, each with its own unique characteristics and challenges.
Yep. And
even within each type, there's variations based on the stage of the disease, the patient's individual genetics, their overall health.
Right. So it's like each cancer case is its own unique snowflake.
It is.
Making it hard to draw broad conclusions.
Right.
Or make accurate predictions.
Yeah.
Based on past data.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Plus, cancer treatments themselves are becoming more and more complex.
Oh, yeah, they are.
We're moving away from like those, one-size-fits-all approaches and toward more personalized therapies that target specific genetic mutations or pathways.
Right.
And this is great for patients, but it makes predicting outcomes even more challenging.
Right, because it's so specific.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like oncology trials are pushing these AI models to their limits.
They are.
Forcing them to grapple with this level of complexity.
Right.
That we're only just beginning to understand.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's where it gets really exciting. This research isn't just about finding the perfect AI model that can predict every trial outcome.
Right.
It's about understanding the strengths and the limitations of these different models and how they can be used to improve the drug development process as a whole.
Oh. Makes sense. Okay, so we've talked about the challenges,
right? Yeah.
But let's shift gears and talk about the potential.
Okay.
You mentioned earlier that this research could really revolutionize drug development.
Yeah.
Can you expand on that a bit?
Sure.
Like paint me a picture of what the future might look like if we can harness the power of AI in this way.
So imagine a world where before you even launch a clinical trial, you can run simulations using these AI models to test different trial designs, patient selection criteria, or even dosage levels. This could help, identify potential pitfalls early on, saving years of research and millions of dollars.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
It's like having a virtual lab where you can you can fine-tune your trial before you even recruit your first patient.
Exactly.
That could be a game changer, especially for diseases like cancer.
Yeah.
Where time is really of the essence.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not just about saving time and money. It's about increasing the odds of success for these trials.
Yeah.
Which ultimately means getting life-saving treatments to patients faster.
Absolutely. But I'm also wondering, what are some of the limitations of this research?
Sure.
What are the things we still don't know?
Yeah.
About using AI to predict clinical trial outcomes.
Right. Well, one of the biggest limitations right now is the amount of data these models are trained on. Okay. Especially for newer models like GPT-4. Yeah. The researchers were working with a relatively small number of clinical trials.
Oh, so it's like trying to learn a new language by only reading, a handful of books.
Exactly.
You might pick up some basic vocabulary, but you're not going to be fluent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So to really unlock the full potential of AI in this field, we need access to, to vast, well-structured data sets of clinical trial information. Cool. And it can't just be, any data. It needs to be diverse, covering different types of trials, different diseases, different patient populations. Right.
You wouldn't want an AI model that's only good at, predicting outcomes for one specific type of cancer trial.
Exactly. Yeah. That wouldn't be very helpful. For the broader research community.
Exactly.
So we want these AI models to be as versatile and as comprehensive as possible, able to provide insights across, a wide range of diseases and treatment approaches.
Makes sense. So data is key.
Right.
But there's another challenge that keeps popping up in these papers.
Right.
Explainability.
Explainability, yeah. It's a huge,
Right now, it's kind of a black box.
It is.
We don't always know,
right.
how the AI is making its predictions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a crucial point. Explainability is essential.
Yeah.
We need to be able to, to understand the reasoning behind the AI's prediction, not just take it at face value.
Right.
If a model tells us a trial is likely to fail, we need to know why. Is it the trial design? The patient population?
Yeah.
Some hidden pattern in the data we haven't even noticed?
Right. It's like getting a cryptic message.
Yes.
From a fortune teller.
Right.
You might get a glimpse of the future, but without understanding the reasoning.
Right.
Behind it.
Yeah.
You're just left wondering.
Right.
What it all means.
Exactly. And in the context of drug development, that lack of explainability can be a real roadblock.
Yeah.
Researchers need to trust, they need to trust the AI's predictions.
Right.
And that trust comes from understanding how those predictions are made.
Right. Absolutely.
So
it sounds like there's still a lot of work to be done.
There is.
Both on the data front and on making these AI models more transparent. But, despite these challenges, the progress that's been made is pretty remarkable.
It is.
Even just a few years ago.
Right.
The idea of AI, predicting clinical trial outcomes.
Yeah.
Seemed like science fiction.
It did.
Yeah.
And while there are still hurdles to overcome, the potential here is undeniable.
Yeah.
We're talking about the possibility of, transforming drug development as we know it.
Yeah.
Using AI to design, better trials, identify potential problems early on, and ultimately getting life-saving treatments to patients faster.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, there you have it, folks.
Right.
AI is making its way into the world of clinical trials.
It is.
And the future looks pretty exciting.
Yeah, it does.
As you go about your day, think about this.
Okay.
What if we could harness the power of AI to not only predict the future of medicine, but also shape it for the better?
Yeah.
This has been The Deep Dive.
Right.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it seems like HINT might be more sensitive to the nuances and the potential pitfalls that can pop up in those more complex trials.
Okay, I'm all ears. What makes those later stage trials such a tough nut to crack, even for AI?
Yeah, well, you have to remember that later stage trials involve a lot more patients, which means more data, more variability, and more potential for, unexpected outcomes.
Right.
And you're also looking at the long-term effects of a treatment, so that adds another layer of complexity.
It does. Yeah, it's like trying to predict the weather a year in advance versus just looking at tomorrow's forecast.
Exactly.
The further out you go,
yeah,
the more unpredictable things become.
Exactly. And on top of that, later stage trials, they often involve comparing a new treatment to existing treatments or placebo. So that introduces even more variables into the equation.
Right. Yeah, I see. So it's not just about the AI's ability to analyze the data.
Right.
It's also about understanding the intricate dynamics of these clinical trials, which, as you've explained, get pretty complicated in the later stages.
Precisely. And that's why it's so interesting that the AI models also had varying degrees of success when it came to predicting different types of trial outcomes.
Okay.
Some outcomes, like overall survival rates, were easier for the AI to predict, while others, like specific side effects or how well patients respond to the treatment, proved more challenging.
When I was reading through these research papers, one thing that jumped out at me was that all the AI models, even the ones that performed well in other areas, seem to really struggle with oncology trials. Why do you think that is?
That's a great observation, and it highlights another layer of complexity in this whole field. Oncology trials are notoriously difficult to predict for a number of reasons.
Like what? Fill me in.
Yeah.
Why are oncology trials such a tough puzzle to solve, even for these, for these super smart AIs?
Well, for one thing, cancer is incredibly complex. There are so many different types of cancer, each with its own unique characteristics and challenges.
Right.
And within each type, there are variations based on the stage of the disease, the patient's individual genetics, and their overall health.
So it's like each cancer case is its own unique snowflake, making it hard to draw broad conclusions or make accurate predictions based on past data.
Exactly. Plus, cancer treatments themselves are becoming increasingly complex. We're moving away from one-size-fits-all approaches and toward more personalized therapies that target specific genetic mutations or pathways.
Right.
This is great for patients, but it makes predicting outcomes even more challenging.
It sounds like oncology trials are pushing these AI models to their limits, forcing them to grapple with a level of complexity that we're only just beginning to understand.
Absolutely. And that's where it gets really exciting. This research isn't just about finding the perfect AI model to predict every trial outcome. It's about understanding the strengths and limitations of these different models and how they can be used to improve the drug development process as a whole. Okay,
so we've talked about the challenges, but let's shift gears and talk about the potential.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that this research could revolutionize drug development. Can you expand on that a bit?
Yeah.
Paint me a picture of what the future might look like if we can harness the power of AI in this way.
Imagine a world where before you even launch a clinical trial, you can run simulations using these AI models to test different trial designs, patient selection criteria, or even dosage levels.
Wow.
This could help identify potential pitfalls early on, saving years of research and millions of dollars.
Wow, that's incredible. It's like having a virtual lab where you can fine-tune your trial before you even recruit your first patient. That could be a game changer, especially for diseases like cancer, where time is of the essence.
And it's not just about saving time and money. It's about increasing the odds of success for these trials, which ultimately means getting life-saving treatments to patients faster.
Absolutely. But I'm also wondering, what are some of the limitations of this research?
Yeah.
What are the things we still don't know about using AI to predict clinical trial outcomes?
Right. One of the biggest limitations is the amount of data that these models are trained on.
Okay.
Especially for newer models, like GPT-4. The researchers, they were working with a relatively small number of clinical trials.
So it's like trying to learn a new language by only reading a handful of books.
Exactly.
You might pick up some basic vocabulary, but you're not going to be fluent.
Exactly. To really unlock the full potential of AI in this field.
Okay.
We need access to these vast and well-structured data sets of clinical trial information.
Right.
It can't just be any data.
Right.
It needs to be diverse, covering different types of trials, different diseases, and different patient populations.
Right. You wouldn't want an AI model that's only good at predicting outcomes for one specific type of cancer trial.
Exactly. That wouldn't be very helpful for the broader research community.
Exactly.
We want these AI models to be as versatile and as comprehensive as possible, able to provide insights across a wide range of diseases and treatment approaches.
That makes sense. So data is key, but there's another challenge that keeps popping up in these papers.
Right.
Explainability.
Explainability.
Right now, it's kind of black box.
It is.
We don't always know how the AI is making its predictions.
Exactly. That's a crucial point.
Yes.
Explainability is essential. We need to be able to understand the reasoning behind an AI's prediction, not just take it at face value. If a model tells us a trial is likely to fail, we need to know why. Is it the trial design, the patient population, some hidden pattern in the data that we haven't even noticed?
It's like getting a cryptic message from a fortune teller.
Yes.
You might get a glimpse of the future, but without understanding the reasoning behind it, you're just left wondering what it all means.
Exactly. And in the context of drug development, that lack of explainability can be a real roadblock.
Right.
Researchers need to trust the AI's predictions, and that trust comes from understanding how those predictions are made.
Absolutely. So it sounds like there's still a lot of work to be done both on the data front and on making these AI models more transparent. But despite these challenges, the progress that's been made is pretty remarkable.
It is.
Even just a few years ago, the idea of AI predicting clinical trial outcomes seemed like science fiction.
It did. And while there are still hurdles to overcome, the potential here is undeniable.
Yeah.
We're talking about the possibility of transforming drug development as we know it, using AI to design better trials, identify potential problems early on, and ultimately get life-saving treatments to patients faster.
Well, there you have it, folks. AI is making its way into the world of clinical trials, and the future looks pretty exciting as you go about your day. Think about this. What if we could harness the power of AI to not only predict the future of medicine, but also shape it for the better? This has been a deep dive. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for having me, Hima.